So now we are going to review rational expressions. So the first topic is simplifying and multiplying. So it says to factor if possible, then cancel out anything that matches. For the first example, there's nothing that you can factor because they're only monomials. If that is the case, then you just multiply across the top. That gets you 15xy. And then you do the same thing for the bottom. That gets you 20xy. Then you simplify. The y's can just and the x's can just cancel, and then you reduce 15 over 20, and that gets you 3/4. And that's your answer. The second example, you can do some factoring. The first fraction you can't, however, the second one you can do the difference of squares. So I can square root both and fill it into a minus b and a plus b. Same with the bottom. X minus 4, x plus 4. Then I cancel out things that are alike. So x minus 4's can cancel, x plus 3's can cancel. So I'm left with x minus 3 over x plus 4. I can't cancel anything else out because they are not matching binomials, so I'm done. For the next example, it is dividing. So you have to keep, change, flip when it's division. For the first one, what you do is you just rewrite the top fraction, x squared minus 1 over, and then I change to multiplication, and then I flip over that bottom fraction. So I have x plus 2 now up top, and x squared minus 2x plus 1 down bottom. Then it turns into a problem that is just like the previous one. So I'm going to do difference of squares here. So a minus b, a plus b. On the bottom, I'm going to do difference of squares. 2 and 3. I get 2 and 1. The top of the second one I cannot do anything with. However, the bottom I can do slide and divide. That gets me -1 and -1. Now I cancel out like things. So this x minus 1 can cancel out with one of them on the bottom. This x plus 1 can cancel out with the x plus 1 on bottom. And the x plus 2 can cancel out. So on the top, if I do some inventory, I'm left nothing up top. If that's the case, then I put a 1 up top. On the bottom, I'm just left with this x minus 1. And then that is my final answer. Next one for dividing, again, keep, change, flip. So I'm going to rewrite the top the first fraction, change to multiplication, and then flip over that second fraction. And then I'm going to factor. So I can do difference of squares here. X minus 3, x plus 3. On the bottom of the first one, that's actually a GCF problem. They both have x in common, so I pull an x out. When I divide both of those by x, I'm left with x plus 1. So don't let it go poof, disappear. The top of the second one, I can do difference of squares again. X minus 1, x plus 1. The bottom, I can't do anything with. Now I cancel things out. I can cancel out this x minus 3. I can cancel out this x plus 1. So up top, I'm left with x plus 3, x minus 1. On bottom, I'm just left with that GCF. Don't forget that. The last topic is adding and subtracting. So this is the only time you have to find a common denominator. Please do not waste your time on the benchmark or the SOL or any time finding a common denominator if it is not adding or subtracting. It'll just waste your time and you'll probably mess up somewhere. So whenever I see that addition between the two fractions, I must get a common denominator. So what I first look at is what they have in common already. So what they have in common already is they both have an x. So that for sure will be part of my common denominator. But then that first guy has a 5. So that 5 will just have to come down to be part of the common. The first fraction already has the common denominator, so I keep it as 4 up top. However, that second one only has an x, so I need to multiply by 5. So that's going to now give me 15 on top. After I get a common denominator, what I do is I see if I can add together the tops. So in this case, 4 and 15 are like terms. If they weren't, then you would not force and add them. You would just put it up top. But they can add, so that gets me 19, and then I keep the bottom exactly the same. Then I reduce or simplify if I can, and I cannot, so I'm done. Last question. So again, need to get a common denominator. So before I do that, I'm going to factor because that's going to make my life easier in the long run. So -4, -3, that gets me -4 and 1. Same over here. -2 and -1, that gets me -2 and 1. So that means, just going to rewrite it there. If you notice, they have a factor in common, which is good. If they don't have one in common, then you might want to check your work because there's probably something went wrong. So what I do to find my common is I look at what they already have in common, which what they have in common already is an x plus 1. So I definitely am including x plus 1 in my common denominator. Then whatever they don't have in common, I also have to bring down. So I'm also going to bring down this x minus 4. And I'm going to bring down this x minus 2. After that, I have to multiply each fraction by what they're missing. So this first fraction needs that x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply the bottom and the top by x minus 2. I have to distribute whatever's on top to that x minus 2. So really the top is going to be 5x minus, oh, see, I almost got tricked, minus 10. That second fraction needs the x minus 4. Again, distribute the 3, so that would get me 3x minus 12. Now, this one's a little different because it is subtraction. When it's subtraction, you have to remember to distribute that subtraction sign to everything on the top of the first fraction. So I'm going to make that subtraction a plus, and then I'm going to distribute to the 3x, so it's now a negative 3x. I'm going to distribute to the 12 and make it a plus 12. So after that has happened, now I can add like terms on the top. So 5x and negative 3x can add together, and that gets me 2x. And then negative 10 and positive 12 gets me 2. And then I just recopy my common denominator. So notice I have not canceled anything yet. Now is the point where I see if I can factor something on the top. So 2x plus 2 can factor. It has a GCF of 2. And then I divide both of these guys by 2. That leaves me with x plus 1. Again, recopy my common. And you should see now that something cancels. So at the very end of the problem, cancel. So the x plus 1's cancel, and I'm left with just the GCF up top and those two parentheses down bottom, and now I'm officially done. So now go ahead and do the two Socrative problems on the bottom of your paper.